So how do you succeed if your IQ is, let's just say, average range? We have some incredible capabilities that if we can tap into them, if we can understand what they are, then that can mean the difference between us actually just living our lives as that average person or excelling and finding those specific advantages that make us better than anybody else out there. Here I am at 54 years of age and now truly understanding my greatest skill sets. I call them my instinctive advantages. My ability to be able to process and do things more effectively in my specific area of focus better than anybody else in the world. I know I'm good at that. Hey y'all, my name is Ty Glover. Just wanted to ask you a question. How do you succeed if you've just got an average IQ? I mean, a basic IQ. They say the average IQ score is between about 90 to about 110, 109. Now, where do you fall? Because here's the question. I know all the folks that have scored way above, let's say 110, maybe they're 120, 130. Those guys have great expectations as far as what their life is in store for them. They have an idea of the fact that based on that test, critically thinking from the standpoint of the way they process information, the way they develop their own ideas of the world, they have an idea in their mind that they're superior, with all due respect, to all the rest of us with the 90s to 100s to 109, just the average person. We've been told pretty much for a great percentage of our lives that the IQ score is the icon of what you want. And if your score is less than 100, they say that you're really not all that good at critical thinking. Well, this YouTube channel is about something different. It's about recognizing the fact that we all think differently. All of us have the same intelligence, more or less, when we come into this earth. But through nature and through nurture, through the development that we have, think of it as if we're a piece of marble, where with the right type of nurturing, the right type of nature, we can be molded, and those fine veins or those fine lines that go around us can be carved out to be a truly creative and intelligent person. So how do you succeed if your IQ is, let's just say, average range? I mean, we all know how those folks with the Mensa high scores of 110s or 120s, 130s are. They all have an idea of how they think from the standpoint of what that test told them about themselves, which means they walk around with their chest out. They walk much stronger than the average person does because they know that they have a critical understanding of the way their brain processes information that allows them potentially to be better than the rest of us. So that's what this YouTube channel is about. The first 3 episodes, I'm going to give you first my take, my understanding of and what impacted me from the standpoint of learning my low IQ score early on in life. The next episode, I'm going to talk to you about how I transcended that, how I moved past it and recognizing the fact that it really didn't matter because I started to tap into what I know to be my key scores and key capabilities. And then the third part, I'm going to just go and introduce to you what this blog, or rather what this YouTube channel is going to be all about. It's going to be an introduction of just how do you develop your mind critically through the things that we see out there all the time. For example, I don't know about you, but I'm a big Netflix, a big Amazon fan. And I watch movies and I watch shows and documentaries that help me to connect pieces. Because when you connect those pieces, then you actually build a greater understanding of how everything operates. And when you build a greater understanding of how everything operates in relationship to how you operate it, then that allows you, or rather provides you with the capability of scaling beyond any dream that you could have possibly have considered. For example, I know my greatest skills and I know my weaknesses. And I know with my IQ score, for example, it came in the area of about 90. Now, I remember that distinctly because at first it really didn't matter much to me. I remember, for example, being roughly around 5 or 6 years old because I have a photo of pretty much what I think I was wearing around the time I took it. I don't know why, but if you notice that photo in the picture right here, it's pretty much what I believe I was wearing about that time for some reason, and I'll tell you why. The next thing is, I also remember the fact that I failed that test miserably the first time. Here's the deal. I remember going and I remember not taking the first test, but the teacher coming in after I was out for a day, and I knew I was out for a specific reason. It wasn't related to sickness, but that teacher thought that I was sick for some reason, and she decided to give me my test again because I did such a poor job on the test itself, which shows you something. Now, When I took that test again, I was sitting in this specific room right here, and I remember something like this. You know what? I think I did just as bad of a job before as I did the second time, because while I don't remember taking it necessarily the first time, I do remember taking it the second time, and I do remember the fact that nothing was mentioned ever more against it or ever more about it, and I just moved through life. I registered that in the corner of my brain, recognizing the fact that that was of some significance, the consequences of which I could not even fathom at that point. Let's flash forward about 10 years to when I was about 16 or 17 years old, and I'd moved down to a small town in Greenville, South Carolina called Travelers Rest High School. I remember being called into the guidance counselor, and even though I was taking courses, all college prep, and even some AP courses, I remember sitting in that room, and I remember this counselor who I'd never met before and never met again afterwards, telling me I had a score of 90. Now, right away when that person told me that, I automatically flashed back to the point where I remember having taken that test, and now it started to sink in. His next statement after that was, well, you should consider the trades. You should consider skills involving using your hands, because it was obviously an implication of the fact that I didn't have the mental capability of being able to process any higher or more critical thoughts. So I registered that in my brain, and I locked it in hard. What did I register? I registered the fact that I had a problem learning, that I couldn't think critically, that I had a problem processing information, which meant that I was not as good as the next guy. And here's the story. I carried through that whole thought process in my mind for close to 40 years after that point, where everywhere I'm going and everything that I'm doing, I'm wondering if I'm smart enough to be able to do this. That was a fundamental break and adjustment in my complete self-confidence as a person. It wasn't until, however, much later in life when I started to begin to recognize the fact that that IQ test, it really didn't measure me. It registered one aspect of the way my brain processes information. But I also started to recognize the fact that I've been able to rewire the way I think from the standpoint of the way I process information. See, I think that we all have certain specific gifts, skills, intelligences that are part of who we are from the standpoint of the first time we came out the womb to who we've been able to develop through and become based on the fact that our nurturing and who we've been around and who's encouraged us and the things we were interested in, but also the nature itself and the fact that I have parents that are incredibly smart. I have a upbringing that really supported me in my development. And I began to recognize the fact that that test didn't really determine who I was. But here's the thing. As I continued to work at even some of the top consulting companies such as Accenture, Tata Consulting Agency, and all these other firms where I was working through and trying to build at least a modicum of an income, I was completely intimidated by the thought that they're going to find out who I am. They're going to discover from me for being the fraud that shouldn't be here in this room, shouldn't be making this salary, shouldn't be having the success that I've achieved, because they're going to recognize it, and then I'm going to lose everything. Even though I went to school and I got my master's in international business and I've studied in many countries around the world and worked in many more countries, I still walked around with that imposter syndrome thought process and thinking the fact that someone's going to find out. And to be honest with you, I would continually work at jobs recognizing that and recognizing when I moved into the position that I may have 1 year, 2 years max before they figured it out and before I was summarily fired. You can imagine the stress that that creates on a person when they're locked into a position where they're recognizing that they're moving through as an imposter. Now, I'm not the only one. There's surveys that say about 75% of us actually feel or have imposter syndrome, but that was me moving through from one job experience to another job experience, hating the jobs, but that's a critical piece there. Hating the jobs was the most fundamental piece of my challenge in being able to actually go and really do well in those jobs, because it's not like I didn't have the mental capability to process the information, perhaps not the same way the other guys did, but differently, but just as effectively. My problem was I didn't really want to be there. And so I would work my way out of that job by sabotaging it, by recognizing the fact that A, I'm not capable of being here and they're going to find out, and by B, I want to be able to position myself for the next job when that comes around, because it's surely going to come. And so C, let me learn other skills and other things and forget this job because I know it's only a temporary thing anyway. That was the way I process information. But here I am again at 54 years of age, some 40 years later, and now truly understanding my greatest skill sets. I call them my instinctive advantages. My ability to be able to process and do things more effectively in my specific area of focus better than anybody else in the world, which means that once I began to develop my understanding of what I do best, again, my instinctive advantage, then I've been able to capitalize on that and scale that into other parts of my world. That's what this YouTube channel is all about. It's about helping you to understand your instinctive advantage, how you best operate. I mean, we've all been through experiences where we recognize the fact that at least coming out of it, we were in flow. And that's when everything moves around you. The time seems to pass very quickly. Everything just clicks. I mean, you're processing. We've all experienced as being people in academia or people working with any job that you've worked at that you're good at, or anything that you've done that you're good at, any sports or any athletic activity, any art, any musical instrument you've played, or any type of development of music that you've done. You all have recognized the fact that you're good at something and you flow into it. When you move into it, no one can tell you you're not the shit. That's what, again, I call an instinctive advantage. And when you watch this YouTube channel, what you're going to learn is you're going to learn two things. You're going to be able to start to identify what specifically is your instinctive advantage, or the thought processes that you put together in a semblance to be able to really execute your best self. The next thing you're going to learn is how do you scale that instinctive advantage to other parts of your life? Because that's really the key to mastering your greatest obstacles and moving on to super success. So here I am in Dominican Republic, and I wanted to come down here and just shoot this first couple of episodes because I really wanted to launch it in a major way. This is not my beautiful house. This is not my beautiful view. But this is something that I can achieve, that you can achieve, and anybody can achieve it if you understand how you work best. And that's what this YouTube channel is seeking to teach you. I'm going to do that through showing you a series of different types of videos and books and anything on Amazon Prime. And I'm going to break out the specific insights that I think you should capture from those different types of shows I'm going to show you, or even books or podcasts, just to help you to better connect pieces. So that's what this YouTube channel is all about. It's about assembling these different experiences to be able to help you to be able to figure out what are your specific instinctive advantages. Because it's not necessarily a matter of just actually connecting those pieces together, but it's also a matter of how do you actually leverage them to be able to scale them to other parts of your life. But everything I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to try to tie it as best as possible to what is called neurolinguistics programming. Now, I learned about neurolinguistics programming, which is called the technology of human behavior. Well, I learned about this many, many years ago when I was traveling, and I think I was in Vancouver at that time. And I was in a bar, and I was talking to this young man, and we were talking. This guy was a nerdy-looking kid, probably 23, 24 years old, really thin build, not necessarily all that good-looking or anything else. Nothing was really set out about this guy, but I remember sitting there talking to him, and this young lady walked in, actually a couple of young ladies. And me being as shy as all get up, and this guy being as nerdy as all get up, these girls walked in, and right off the bat, my jaw started to drop, checking out these girls and being interested in them, but not knowing anything that I could say, and thinking I'm going to buy them drinks and everything else. And this guy said, don't do that. This guy said, no, they don't respect that. They don't respond to that at all. And he started to tell me about NLP, neuro-linguistics programming, and how it works with regards to understanding human behavior and how we as humans process information. Think about it this way. We get all of our information in through our 5 basic senses of sight, sound, smell, touch, taste. We take that information in, we receive a stimulation or a stimuli, whether it's through our sights or through our sounds, what we hear, our touch, our taste, or smell. And then we interpret it. What does that sight, sound, smell, touch, taste mean? We assign a meaning to it. That a meaning is something that we pull from our background. It may be a connection. For example, if you're used to being at the Christmas table or Christmas Eve and you're smelling cookies cooking in the background, anytime you smell maybe cookies, those same types of cookies, you're going to be thinking it's going to take you back there. That's an involuntary response that you can't have any control over because it connects to something else in your past. Well, we do that as well. We process information, we assign a belief to it, and then actually we interpret it, and then we have an action ourselves. That whole process continues on and on and on until we actually have a result at the end of the day. The problem is that result may be what we're not looking for. It may be an interpretation and a response completely involuntary because we don't have control over the way we act and react, but yet we're moving through life in this way and not understanding how, in fact, our actions and our interpretations are affecting our outward opportunities and goals. So I'm going to be connecting this with NLP itself to be able to help you to better understand how everything is actually all processed and working together. That's my goal with this. So what you're going to see in the next episode is you're going to see me talk about how I really began to recognize the fact that I am better than what I think I am, and that my beliefs of what I'm capable are not in alignment with the way my brain works and the way I process information. I figured that out on my own, but it took me many, many years. And I want to talk to you about that on the next episode. The last episode, again, is I'm going to talk about ideation and development of ideas, because we're all here, we all connect, we all have unique experiences here in this great old planet called Earth. And those unique experiences that we have actually form a unique view that no one else will ever in the history of the past or the future will ever be able to actually tell you about. They'll never be able to do it like you do it. So you have specific skills and capabilities and understandings of the way you process information that, again, you can begin to capitalize on. And we're going to talk about that, and you're going to be able to connect those to the series of videos. Anything we can find that helps you to start building the connections of scale is what we're truly seeking here. So thank you for coming into this YouTube channel for the first time. And if you like us, like it, please subscribe, because I'd love to be able to share more information and hear your feedback as I'm on this road of NLP journey, and I'm hoping to be able to learn more as I process that information and put things together. So welcome aboard. Thank you.
Every core computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.